It's all about efficiency. Okay, you get to a certain point in life and you're like, you know what? I love being in the gym, but I have kids, I have a family, I just need to get on with my life, and I can't be spending 2-3 hours in the gym. And I've got Marcus Philly here, who is someone, like, when it comes down to efficiency and getting the most bang for the buck out of your workout, I just think is the master. Like, you've really mastered this down pretty much to a literal science. So Marcus, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna break down sort of like how we can segment or even structure our workouts to,
sure,
I guess, get the most bang for the buck.
That's right. And thanks for having me. And yeah, I mean, somebody who 6 years ago I was competing in fitness, in CrossFit, and was dedicating hours and hours a day to training because I wanted to be the fittest on earth. And then I had kids, got married, started a business, life changed, my priorities changed, and I really needed to be more efficient with my training. But I wanted to take a lot of my love of training and the efficacy of training and bring it into what does it look like to do that in 60 minutes or 45 minutes? And as I get further along in parenting and connecting with clients that have real lives that are committed to their careers, families, and they don't have hours a day to train, what are the things that allow us to be efficient but also really effective in training? And that, to me, is what really helps define what are the things that we need to be thinking about each day that we're in the gym.
After today's video, there is a link down below for Thrive Market. Now, that is going to get you 30% off your entire grocery order. Okay, so if you are doing paleo, maybe you're doing keto, maybe you're intermittent fasting, you're trying different things out. Wish there were grocery stores that were dedicated for what kind of diet you were doing, right? Well, Thrive Market is like that. You just sort by whatever diet type you're doing and you can shop. It opens up a grocery store for you right there digitally for whatever diet you're doing, which is super cool. But the best part is, using that link, you save 30% off your entire grocery order, plus a $50 free gift because you're using that link through one of my videos. So check out Thrive Market after today's video to save some cash and get some awesome products. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think it's a big piece, right? And people get really confused about this because they say, okay, well, do I need to be doing a bunch of cardio? Should I be lifting? Should I be like, oh, resistance training is great for longevity, I should be doing that. Cardio is great for the heart, I guess I should be doing that. And then the next thing you know, they're doing like 2-a-days, and it's just like, no, that's not practical. Like,
yeah, it's not practical. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that if you want to be world class, then it's going to be hard to do that in 45 minutes a day, right? Like, if you want to go win the CrossFit Games, which I did many years ago, I needed to train for 3 hours. But if people are really honest with what are your goals, it's to look better, feel good, have energy, stay healthy, and that can absolutely be accomplished in a shorter time frame in the gym, so long as you're applying some of these principles and you're not wasting the time that you have when you're in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, let's jump right in, man.
Okay, well, the first thing I wrote up here is warm-ups. You know, I think a lot of people come into the gym, they're like, hey, I'm short on time, I'm gonna skip my warm-up because that just takes extra time and I don't get much out of it anyway. It's not like the big bang for your buck, you know, lifting exercise. But what I like to be having people reorient their thinking towards is, if you don't warm up and if you don't prep your body, number one, your weight training or whatever conditioning you might be doing in the gym is not gonna be as effective. You're actually gonna waste time getting your body prepared to do its maximal weight training sets that are gonna move the needle on your strength and your muscle mass because you didn't take the time to warm up when you first got there. I also think that an effectively structured warm-up, which I'll show you what that can look like, can be added conditioning and added training volume to your hour that you're in the gym. And you're gonna be able to move very seamlessly from a warm-up into something that is going to be more quote-unquote effective or high intensity that you are traditionally used to. And then the last piece is that if you don't warm up or you don't prepare your body correctly, your likelihood of maybe having a tweak or an injury during your training goes up, and you might find yourself over time feeling nagging pains and injuries, and maybe you're going to have to take days out of the gym because you didn't properly prepare yourself. So there's a lot of reasons why I think a warm-up is key, and it doesn't have to take 20 minutes. It can take about 6 to 10 minutes, and it can be very efficient. And so the recipe that I've come up with is, we're going to get on a cardio machine like a rower or a ski or a bike, and we're gonna do a minute of that. We did that today in our training session. And then we're gonna move into something that's body weight for 10 to 20 reps. And that should mimic what we're gonna do later in the training session. So if you have bench press that day, then maybe it's body weight push-ups. That's a great way to prepare your shoulders, prepare the upper body, so that when you get to the bench press, you're ready to go. And then the third would be to include a weight training exercise in your warm-up. People are like, oh, we don't do weights until we finish the warm-up. It's like, not necessarily. You can do some weighted exercises inside of your warm-up. So we do cardio, a minute on the bike, we do some push-ups, and then maybe we grab some light dumbbells and we do some RDLs with those dumbbells for 10 reps as well. And that way our brain's ready to do it because it's not super heavy. We're doing it in a slightly higher rep range. And we do that for 2, 3, maybe even 4 rounds. And by the time you finish with that, it's been 6 to 8 minutes. You're sweaty. All the movement patterns that you're going to do in your training are prepped. And you got some added training volume in that really short window before you even got going in your lifting.
That's what I think I like about it the most is sometimes I feel like the warm-up isn't doing me a service. I feel like the warm-up is just, this is a necessary evil I need to get through, and at that it's like you're not getting much benefit out of it. But with this, I love this because I feel like I'm jumping right into training.
Yep.
Physically. But mentally, I know I'm doing the right thing by actually warming up and sort of structuring it as such, and even like mildly increasing the intensity a little bit with each time through, just to kind of just get things rolling.
Yep.
Like today, we did the scap push-ups and everything like that, and those ostrich walks, which is just great. Like that's felt like, hey, this is something that adds volume.
And one more thing, and I know we're staying on warm-ups for a long time, but mentally arriving in the gym is so critical. I see people, they get started in their workout, they've had a busy day, maybe they just woke up, maybe they've been at work all day, their mind is other places, or maybe they're not like sharp and focused. And they start to go through the motions with their bench press or their deadlift or whatever exercise they want to do. And it isn't until 10 minutes later that they're like sharp and clicking and ready to get their workout started. I think that warm-ups that are effectively structured like this, they really help you mentally arrive. And once you're mentally there and prepared to like now bring full energy to your workout, you're going to get so much more value out of the rest of the time that you have there. If it's only 40 minutes left, that's going to be 40 very focused, highly effective minutes versus, I didn't do a warm up, I took 20 minutes to get going. Like, when's that caffeine pre-workout going to kick in? Like, no, this helps you get there quickly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so next we have supersets. So we kind of know what like a generic superset is, but like you've got kind of a unique way of looking at this. So can you describe how that plays in?
Sure, yeah. I mean, resistance training is probably the most important thing that everybody needs to be doing in the gym. We need people lifting weights to build muscle mass. Muscle mass is going to drive metabolism. It's the number one thing that's going to drive people's metabolism. So if they're looking for weight loss, if they're looking for better energy, if they're looking for better functional capacity in life, strength, muscle, that's what we need to be boosting. And so the traditional thought around weight training is like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 of this exercise and go do 3 sets of 10 of this exercise. And that is effective, highly effective. But it can also add a lot of time because we see people that are doing their sets, they're resting and waiting. Doing their sets, resting and waiting. And so supersets are not a new concept. They've been around for a long time. But the idea is that by choosing the right exercises, we can pair a squat with an upper body pulling motion. And during my rest periods of a squat, I can go and do an upper body pulling exercise. And then when I'm resting from my upper body pulling exercise, I can come back and do a squat pattern. And if we choose movements like this that are antagonistic, that don't, like, I can squat and then go to a pull-up and that doesn't fatigue my squat, I can combine a lot of work into a short amount of time and get still a great bout of intensity in my squat and in my pull-up. So I will always opt for a more efficient style of weight training by choosing supersets. And again, it's thinking about one exercise that pairs well with another exercise that's going to allow me to get a lot of intensity out of each of them without compromising the other lift. So an example of what would compromise the other lift is, okay, squatting and lunging, 2 great weight training exercises. We'll do a back squat and we'll do dumbbell lunges. Now, if I do those back to back, well, they're both hitting legs. They're both going to be fatiguing one or the other. And I want people to be pushing themselves hard in their supersets, in their resistance training. I also want them to be efficient. So again, it comes back to choosing the right exercises that pair really well together. And this is the concept of these antagonistic muscle groups. So another example would be I can go do bench press and then I can go do a dumbbell row. And those are opposing muscle groups. I can bench press heavy and hard, and intensely for 5 to 15 reps. Then I can go do dumbbell rows for 10 to 20 reps per arm. And yeah, I'm working the upper body in 2 different ways, but principally like they're opposing, and so they're not going to fatigue each other too much. Other great combinations are hinging exercises like a deadlift combined with a pushing exercise. Those are classic. That's another classic combination. It's what we did today. We deadlifted and we did push-ups or weighted push-ups. Another great resistance training superset that isn't fatiguing the other exercise. So key to keep in mind, pick 2 exercises that don't fatigue each other, and then you can really push both of them independently without them fatiguing one another, and you are packing a lot more into a shorter period of time.
That's great. I mean, I feel that's great. I feel like the limiting factor that people might push on there, they might say, well, my conditioning isn't going to be there. That's what's going to be my limiting factor. And I will add that I think that is a very valid argument, but by doing these, you're going to build conditioning.
That's right.
So your conditioning is a limiting factor that you can improve. What you can't necessarily improve as quickly is going to be your central nervous system recovery. Exactly. Of being like, I'm going to do submaximal 3-rep squat and then go into a maximal lunge. You know, like your muscles are fried, your central nervous system is fried. That is not something you're really going to improve to the nth degree like you can with just this rep range and improving conditioning. Your conditioning will improve. It might be hard at first, but it's not because of the physical lift, it's because your baseline conditioning isn't there, but that'll come.
That's right. And, you know, I even started off by saying this, you know, there are always going to be some trade-offs, right? If we're trying to be efficient with our training and we're doing more supersets, then yeah, you might not be able to load up as heavy as you could if you just did straight sets of squats without another exercise in between. You might be challenged by your conditioning, your aerobic conditioning. You'll find when you do supersets, okay, I'm breathing a little bit more, I'm not fully recovered going into the next, so I'm limited by my conditioning. But again, it's a trade-off because we're trying to combine more work into a shorter period of time, be more efficient in the gym. And I would argue that we're trying to improve all these fitness metrics anyway.
Yeah.
We're going to get to conditioning later, but if we can get some aerobic conditioning through our resistance training, that's not a bad thing. And at the end of the day, if you want to look good, you want to feel good, you want to move better, then why would you prioritize only the weights versus the conditioning? I think they're both really important factors in your training and your fitness that you should be trying to elevate across the board.
Yeah, fair, very fair. Yeah. Okay, so next up we've got timed lifting, which is something that really became new to me in the last year and a half, and I'm absolutely in love with it. It's just changed how I look at fitness. So I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, so this kind of goes hand in hand with supersets. Like 2 and 3 are somewhat connected for me, at least in most of the training programs that I'm writing and that I'm doing. But one of the biggest, you know, pet peeves I have is watching people when they're in the gym and they do work and then they just hang out and, you know, look at their phone and they're getting distracted in a conversation, and you know, then they complain to me later like, man, this workout took way too long. And I'm like, if I could tabulate all the different, you know, moments that you were just distracted and not focused on your training, it probably added up to 35 minutes of you just looking at your phone. Where we could cut that down considerably, you'd be in and out of the gym with just as much work done, and you would feel like, oh, my workouts only took me 45 minutes. So this is where the idea of timed lifting came into play, because that's kind of the area that most people I see make the mistake of resting too long or getting distracted. It's like, I just did a weight training set, I have to rest. We know that rest is important when you're resistance training. You don't want to just be like cranking out reps for 20 minutes because you start to have local muscle fatigue and you can't actually lift as heavy and you can't develop strength characteristics. So we know we need to rest, but we don't need to rest forever. So a timed lifting format is something like every 60 seconds for 10 minutes, I'm gonna do a set of something. I could do a set of squats on minute number 1. I'll do 7 reps of squats on minute number 1. Then on minute number 2, we're gonna use the superset concept. We're gonna come in, we're gonna do 10 reps of pull-ups. And then on minute number 3, we're back to doing our 7 reps of squats. And minute number 4, we're back to doing our 10 pull-ups. And we're alternating, supersetting on the minute. And what that does is it makes it very, very clear, like, oh, that's as long as I have to rest. I'm on the clock. someone comes over, hey, Thomas, I want to tell you about hey, sorry, I'm on the clock right now. I'll be done in 10 minutes, and then we can have a quick chat before I move on to the next part of my training. So these timed lifts are a great way to keep your focus on what you're supposed to be doing. And look, it doesn't always have to be 60 seconds as your interval. It could be 90 seconds as your interval, or it could be 2 minutes as your interval. But at least it tells me, this is going to take me 10 minutes. That's as long as this is going to be. Or this is going to take me 20 minutes. And I have a very clear window of time that I need to stay focused on what I'm doing, rather than getting pulled into a side conversation or pulled into my device or whatever else might be in front of me.
Yeah, and I like how it makes it relative to how long it's taking you for a specific set too, right? It's rather than saying, I'm gonna have 60 seconds rest in between my sets, you're saying by doing this on the minute, like if I'm going for 7 reps of squats and I start gassing out a little bit and it starts taking me longer on those 7 reps, or maybe I'm getting a little lazy in those 7 reps, I kind of get lackadaisical with it. And if it starts taking me 50 seconds or 55 seconds to get through 7 reps of squats, then sorry, you're only gonna have 5 seconds rest. So I don't wanna say you get punished, but it keeps you honest, and it does actually subconsciously help with tempo. Because like even we were training this morning, even as we fatigued, we were still naturally keeping with like 15 to 20 seconds of good recovery between each minute on the minute.
Yep. One last thing to talk about with time lifting is that, the ability to adjust your intensity is something that is talked about a lot. It's this idea of progressive overload, or working a little harder than last time you were in the gym. And most people will reach towards more weight as a way to progressively overload. They say, you gotta do more work than you did last time, or you gotta push it harder than last time if you wanna see results. And so I did 100 pounds on my squat last week, I gotta do 105 pounds on my squat this week. Now, you can't progressively overload weight indefinitely. At some point, you reach plateaus, or you reach limits of how much you can push, both physiologically and just safely. And so I like time lifting because it adds a new variable in there. I can really define what these rest periods are, and I can make it more intense. If week number 1, we do it every 2 minutes, we're doing a set. Week number 2, we're doing it every 90 seconds, we're doing a new set. Week number 3, it's every 60 seconds, we're doing a new set. Now you've just shortened rest periods, and that is a way of intensifying things. So it's just another variable that we can use to kind of track our progress, or make things a little bit more challenging within a, let's say, 6 to 8 week program that you're following, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do the same weight, for 6 weeks, but every week I'm gonna make my timed intervals a little bit shorter, so that now I'm having less recovery time, which is gonna elevate my intensity for that lift.
It might subsequently increase your volume, your number of reps that you completed through that 10-minute period of time too, depending on how you look at it or what you're doing.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, equipment selection. I think this is a big one, especially, since 2020, a lot of people just ditched their global gyms and they're saying, you know what, I'm just gonna have some dumbbells, I'm gonna have a few basic things in my garage. So this part I love.
Yeah, well, with equipment selection, again, we're on the concept of how do we be more efficient with our training? And, it's great to have access to all these, great gyms that have tons of equipment, have 20 different machines. But I also see that when you try and add in too many different implements, or too many different types of equipment that you're trying to use for your training, that can add time. I got to go get on this machine over here, then I got to walk over there, I'm going to try and use that machine, and then, oh, that person's using that right now, I can't work in with them, and hey, next thing you know, like, you just doubled the amount of time in the gym because you're waiting for the right equipment piece to come up. That also is true for barbells in some instances. Like, hey, if you're really trying to be efficient, well, barbells, you got to load plates, you got to take them off, you got to, maybe put the barbell up on a rack. And so I like thinking about dumbbells and kettlebells. And, if you have an assortment of dumbbells, maybe light, medium, and heavy, or kettlebells, light, medium, and heavy, with those types of implements, you can do so many different exercises in one place. And I get this from people a lot. They say, hey, I want to do functional bodybuilding, and I want to do it inside of this commercial gym. I find it hard to go and, try and monopolize 2 different places in the gym to do my supersets. Yeah. Like, I can't take the rack and go and take the row machine over here. Someone's going to bother me and take it. I'm like, well, guess what? If you grab a kettlebell and a dumbbell, or you go over to the dumbbell rack, you got access to 2 different weights. You can do a superset right there in the same 2 to 3 foot square radius, and nobody's going to bother you, and no one's going to take your equipment because it's right there with you. So I think equipment selection is something that people don't really look at. They'll read a program and they're like, oh, this is going to be hard. Like, I can't get to, okay, well, let's simplify it. And something as simple as a set of dumbbells, or even if you have adjustable dumbbells, I know those are becoming more and more popular, especially during COVID. Get a set of adjustable dumbbells. Hey, I can do 70-pound lunges, and then I can make it a little bit lighter, and I can do 50-pound rows. And that's a great superset, that we can put a timed lifting format onto, and we're using just dumbbells as opposed to I need a rowing machine and I also need a squat, a barbell to do my lunges that I have to take weights on and off of. So thinking about what equipment is going to work for you, making sure you have enough weight options so that you can see some progression, or you can try some lighter exercises and heavier exercises, but that you just don't take up a lot of floor footprint, and you can get it done quickly in a small space.
Yeah, wherever you are, hotel, gym, whatever.
Exactly.
All right, mixed conditioning, a lot of mixed feelings on that with a lot of people. And I want to address one thing before I let you get into your magic here, is that you can still have a nice hypertrophy muscle growth response by doing some mixed conditioning, like with some of this stuff like we're talking about. So I just want to kind of addressing all of it, like the supersets. People might be thinking, well, I'm not going to get the muscle growth if I'm getting this conditioning mixed in, or if we're talking about some of the things we're going to talk about here. I just want to get it out in the open that conditioning in a lot of ways is going to be a great foundation for you to build more muscle. It's going to allow you to recover faster so you get more out of your subsequent resistance training sets. So I'm just putting this emphasis on, I'm a big conditioning guy and I maintain muscle pretty well. Mm-hmm. You're a huge conditioning guy and you maintain muscle very well. So not even that I want us to get on our high horse, but let us sort of be walking proof that you can maintain decent amount of muscle while still doing a lot of conditioning, or a fair bit of conditioning.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I come from a fitness space where conditioning was and is like a big emphasis. Like, I was a CrossFitter for years. I did that competitively, and it was ingrained into me that work capacity, the ability to do stuff, with some breathing and in a short amount of time was valuable. And I saw tremendous, benefit to not only my physique, but just my wellness and also my enjoyment and love of training. So it has definitely been something that I've carried with me for years, and it's a big part of how I coach now. And I do recognize that some people still have that belief that, hey, if I want to build muscle, cardio is bad. And I can't do cardio because it's going to chew up my muscle tissue. And yeah, we can be examples of how we can dispel that myth. And of course, if you're trying to build world-class physiques and build the most muscle possible, then perhaps we can have that conversation. There's some validity to hey, you don't want to do too much cardio if you're trying to, get on stage at the Olympia and win. But here we are, we're making some trade-offs. We're not here to win, Mr. Olympia. We're here to look good, move well, feel good in life, and do a lot in a short amount of time. And I'm a true believer that having a great aerobic fitness base is going to improve your energy utilization, like how you burn energy throughout the day, the food that you're eating. It's going to help me. It helps me to manage my appetite and my energy balance. It also gives me a feeling of fitness. I can get a lot more work done from a resistance training standpoint in a short amount of time because I have good aerobic fitness to recover during my weight training. And when I go and apply my fitness to life, if I'm going on a hike or if I'm doing something active outside, I like to have a good aerobic fitness base so that I'm the one that's leading the charge out there and not falling behind, my family and friends when we're doing something active. So on the topic of mixed conditioning, a lot of people are doing cardio at the gym anyway, and the typical cardio is I'm going to jump on the machine and I'm going to do it for 20 minutes. And that's going to be my way of getting cardio in. I'm going to throw in 20 minutes of treadmill at the end or stair stepper. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if that's the way that you like to do conditioning, just know that steady state cardio, you need to put in the time. You can't magically, develop an aerobic system with 5 minutes of steady state cardio. It's not going to cut it. You got to put in some time. But alternatively, this idea of doing some mixed conditioning is a way where when you're in an efficiency focused workout, that you can bring some other resistance training or body weight training elements into your cardio and kind of like get the benefit of doing accessory lifting at the same time that you have elevated heart rate. And so treadmill for 20 minutes. Alternatively, a mixed session would be, okay, we're gonna go for 12 minutes. We're gonna mix movements together. It's gonna allow us to sustain an elevated heart rate, so we're getting cardiovascular fitness in. But I'm also gonna do some bodyweight burpees, some lunges, and some sit-ups, and I can do them not like as fast as I possibly can with no regard for form. I can do them in a controlled way. I can pay attention to my form. My lunges can be accessory, resistance training for my glutes, my hamstrings, and my quads. I can get some good core work in so that I don't have to do like an extra abdominal finisher at the end. I can include that into my cardiovascular training. And a burpee is just another great calisthenics movement for like full body, metabolic impact, getting the heart rate elevated for a short period of time. So combining those into like a continuous circuit, 200 meters of running, 5 burpees, 10 lunges, 15 sit-ups, keep going for the duration of 12 minutes, stay in control. You're not trying to go as fast as you can, but you're trying to keep your heart rate elevated. This is something that I think packs a lot of different elements of your fitness into a shorter time window, and in conjunction with the warm-up that we did that involves some cardio, and the supersets, we've got a lot of sustained aerobic work during this 45 to 60 minute session that you can replace your steady state cardio with, because you just really made that the focus of how you were training throughout the whole entire training session.
And keep mentally stimulated while you're at it too. And another thing that's important to note is like with steady state, like if you do 20 minutes of running or 20 minutes of something, like 20 minutes of running for a lot of people, that repetitive motion can be a problem for the joints. And the thing I like about this is like you're breaking it down in a way where you're actually not getting the repetitive motion on a single joint. So especially for people that might be overweight and they're like, I can't just go run, or my only thing I can do is the elliptical because there's not a concussive impact on there. This is great. Like you don't have to run. You could do a 200 meter low impact row. You don't have to do burpees. You could do 5 push-ups. You could do 5 push-ups from the knees. You could do 10 lunges. It's just a great way, and I think it's a conventional cardio thinking that doesn't make us realize that, wow, we can just do a bunch of little things. And Absolutely. Like I've even taken this concept for fun. Like today is going to be a day, I'm supposed to go for like a 60-minute run. Today's a running day. That doesn't sound that fun. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to do 40 minutes of something like this.
Sure.
And you can get a killer conditioning workout if you want to extend that and make it just a beast.
So. Totally. Yeah. And you brought it up, but like mental stimulation is so key. It's like if you're bored with your training, then you're not going to be super consistent. If it gets you excited, if it keeps you mentally engaged, then I absolutely think that is the route that you should follow. Over time, you need to be training and moving your body consistently for years, decades, in order to like maintain the health and the wellness in the body that you want for your life. And if it's boring, then there's no way you're going to last years. There's no way you're going to last decades. So I don't know. I love this format. I think it's relatively simple. You could start with this warm-up that takes 10 minutes. You could create 2 supersets that you're going to do on a day. Maybe one that you do a longer time interval so you can maybe push your weights a little bit more, not be so restricted by the conditioning aspect of it. And then maybe you choose a second superset where the rest periods or the time intervals are shorter. So that might be a little bit more aerobically demanding. And then you do a mixed conditioning piece at the end between 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much time you have. So 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, maybe another 10 minutes, followed by 15. At most we're at like the 50-minute mark. You can definitely cram a lot into a short amount of time with quality, still moving your strength metrics up, building muscle, and getting good cardiovascular exercise in. And I think that the mistake, again, I see people make with short on time is, and actually I didn't mention this before, but hey, I only have 30 minutes to work out. People opt for aerobic work, or they opt for conditioning work. They opt for going and getting a good sweat, and they skip out on weight training. And it's like, I want to use these principles of time efficient weight training to make sure everyone that is short on time with their training is prioritizing lifting weights, because we need more people lifting weights. You know, yeah, we need people doing cardio, but we definitely need more weight lifting happening out there for people's muscle mass to like sustain, to grow, for their strength to be up, for them to have better outcomes when it comes to feeling good and looking good and getting what they want out of their fitness.
Sorry, holding that cough in. No, perfectly said. And I mean, you've heard it here. It's pretty direct and everything that you need to really get a good grasp on this. So Marcus, where can everyone find you?
Head over to functional-bodybuilding.com and you can jump onto my newsletter where I'm giving out training tips and some nutrition tips as well every single week.
Perfect. As always, see you tomorrow. Thanks, man.